Yan, he's the chair of Microfinance Council of the Philippines and the president, the CEO of Kabalikat para sa maunlad na buhay, a microfinance NGO. From 2001 up until now, he serves as the microfinance advisor of Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, looking at policy and regulatory issues affecting the practice of microfinance and financial inclusion in the banking sector. He also sits at a private sector as a private sector representative, the Microfinance NGO Regulatory Council, or MNRC. Mr. Ed started his professional life working for the then Central Bank of the Philippines and was posted in various capacities during his stint. Before he moved to the NGO sector, his last posting at the bank in 1985 was to help manage the bank's US $3.5 billion portfolio. Sir Ed currently sits at the World Vision International Board and is also the chair of World Vision Philippines. He also serves on the board of several faith-based NGOs. Napaka-active at busy ni Sir Ed. Let's all welcome Sir Ed. Palakpakan po natin.
Thank you for the opportunity to share with you this morning. I think in the last day and a half, we've heard a lot, and I think I'm sure with this. My topic today was, I'd like to believe that would also apply to the organization, individual or member organizations that we're involved with. So let me start in a way by saying that, let me go on with my slide. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it? No. Something.
Meron na, sir. Meron na, sir. Ano na lang. Presenter view. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Network organizations have particular calling and mission, and that is to support the growth, nurture, and the stability of member organization. In the Philippines, as part of the history, two national networks are in the front line in supporting their member organization. The oldest network of microfinance NGO, which is our network, Alliance of Philippine Partners, or APPEND, as we call it, was organized in February 1991 as a response to the growing resource and capacity building requirements of the informal network of faith-based Philippine microfinance NGOs that were established by the Opportunity International Network. On the other hand, the Microfinance Council of the Philippines, or MCPI, of which I currently chair, started out of a USAID-funded project given to the TSPI and in the mid-90s and was formally registered in 1999. One, we are grateful to TSPI for hosting this year's ALC and first virtual conference. As we all know, TSPI, as the nanay, is the first microfinance NGO in the Philippines, is a moving spirit in the development of some of the APPEND partner organizations. TSPI piloted the provincial partner program, wherein at some point of time, 7 or 8 organizations, of which now are the members of APPEND, have come into. So we are grateful for, and it is auspicious in the sense that as we celebrate our decades of working with APPEND, at the same time, TSPI has just celebrated its 4 decades of existence. So we are grateful with them. All right. Ayaw. Okay, that's now as I start with my presentation, we need to keep in mind that when we talk of network, we are talking of complementation and not competition. Okay, network should be seen as complementing and not exactly competing with member organizations. So they should be seen as supporting, advocating the operational mandate of its member organization and not as competitors, especially in resource mobilization. In the Philippine context of the two networks, advocacy works, be it at local, regional, national, international sphere, have been clearly highlighted. Various policies, regulation, and legislative agenda are and framework supportive of the growth and sustainability of the microfinance and NGO, as well as the practice in general, has been consistently championed by our networks. The APPEND network, for its part, as needed, spearheaded the capacity building of its member organization in the technical, uh, uh, general leadership, and spiritual moral realms. These two networks, especially the MCPI, in behalf of non-APPEND members, are actively working and supporting its member to put microfinance and our common goal to defeat our common enemy, that is poverty, in the middle of discussion as we relate with regulators, private sector organization, legislative bodies, civil service organization, and other stakeholders that we are involved with. Our network leaders are in the front line in our behalf, advocating for our common goal. And let me remind ourselves that as we collaborate and support one another, let us keep this biblical injunction in mind. One, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but who to him that is not alone when he falls? For he hath no one to help him up. Okay, and the other verse is Proverbs 27:17, which says, iron sharpens iron, and so does one man with another man. And the last verse I'd like to share is Proverbs 11:14, where it says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in abundance of counselor, there is safety. So in the light of these, just specifically three verses, I could affirm and say that we have seen this happen in the two networks that the members both of APPEND and non-APPEND are involved with. We see the working out of common goals and aspiration as we like to see a better Philippines. As John Doe intoned, no man is an island in itself. Every man is a piece of a continent and a part of the main. We need one another. And as the song we are familiar with, walang sino man ang nabubuhay para sa isa lamang. So in the context of network, we need one another. Now, in the light of the pandemic that we are experiencing, or this COVID-19 pandemic, how do we see our networks in the light of its vision and mission, and in the light of its work with its partner organization? I'm flashing right now a term which was coined way back in the 80s. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic crippled to some extent not only the microfinance community, but not totally down, but practically everyone in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented, never that it has happened in history, actual losses both in human lives and other tangible resources being used by our microfinance institution. The challenges will continue, albeit maybe in a lower intensity in the years to come. But credible international organizations are now saying, are now saying that in the case of the Philippines, our vital economic indicators will return to its pre-pandemic level maybe 3 to 4 years from now. In the mid-1980s, the American War College coined this acronym BUCA. So there's where I am putting a context to what we are in right now. BUCA basically stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Okay. This is that term, BUCA, came as a response to the situation that arose from the Cold War. this acronym is very much applicable in our current situation right now, the current scenario we're fighting against COVID. And we struggled with great swings in volatility, prolonged uncertainty, confusion brought by complexity and ambiguity as a result of this pandemic. The networks in the Philippines have taken more proactive stance to assist and support its member organization. Let me backtrack a bit. When we say volatility, it's basically, it can be seen as a negative or positive. But when I'm a banker for quite a long time and heavily involved in investing the fund of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The nature and dynamics of change and the nature and speed of change and the forces and analysis. So it affects the volatility in a way will affect to a large extent how we are functioning. When you say uncertainty, it basically means the lack of predictability or the prospect for surprise. Not in a lot of sense, there's so much uncertainty. Sometimes there's fear. Okay, when we talk of complexity, basically means multiplex of forces or the confounding of issues, confusion that may arise because of complexity, and ambiguity basically means we are facing the unknowns because of cause and effect are brought about by confusion in cause and effect, and the possibility of potential for misreading the situation. So when we look at the current context, as I said, our networks, both the MCPI and APPEND, in a way have been in the front line assisting us. Okay. Flash now some of the activities and initiatives that APPEND have participated in and collaborated with the MCPI in the last 18 months. Both MCPI and APPEND facilitated the development of roadmap to recovery for microfinance institution, which was started in May 2020. I could say that practically all institutions, member of APPEND and MCPI, have benefited from the roadmap that was worked on by your network institution. Secondly, the advocacy done by both MCPI and APPEND to include the organizations that you are involved with, your member organization. Both by the MNRC, the DTI, and by the SEC and the IATF to have our respective IDs be recognized by the LGUs. So we have coordinated with the Department with the MNRC so that those IDs can be issued by your member organization. And we work with various LGUs. Our former board chair at MCPI has been instrumental on this. She has worked, I'm talking about Mayan, who has also working with both cooperatives and the LGUs. So she has helped put both the MCPI and the other organization in positive light as they collaborate with the LGUs. We work with various LGUs and other private sector to counter negative news regarding COVID-19 and help in to vaccinate. We created a technical working group on the pandemic, on the effect of the pandemic on financial performance standard of microfinance NGOs that collaborated with the MNRC. We work towards working and supporting the move by the microfinance NGO to interface and work with our regulators, either both with the BSP or with the MNRC, to work with regulatory relief. We advocated with the help of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to work with the Philippine Guarantee Corporation to set up And by next week, we will be having that meeting on that to set up a special window to assist microfinance in accessing commercial loan from commercial banks and other credit granting institutions. And fourthly, the capacity building. Various webinars and seminars addressing mental health of microfinance NGO staff and clients were conducted, both by the network in itself and by the institutions here. We've done training on business continuity planning for microfinance institution. Now, in the light of what we said and the activities done by the MCPI and APPEND, one very strong negative impact that we try to address is the whole notion of fear. One very strong negative impact that this pandemic has brought into our midst is so much uncertainty and fear. Mental issues have more than doubled. Anxieties prospered and lingered. Let us get some principles and sound practices from how our network organization have conducted themselves in the light of the new normal. Let us also, as I said, use the term VUCA in a positive note as we celebrate our uniqueness in doing microfinance and the practice of it as we battle poverty in our country. However, keep in mind that whether you are a network organization or a member organization, an implementing partner, please consider the following as we lead our organization in the new normal and focus and energy on this. Gagamitin ko rin yung VUCA. 1, let's keep on our vision because that is our true north. As we follow the Lord in our calling and mission. It's been said in the Bible, when there is no vision, the nation perishes, as the good book said. So as we battle with this pandemic and various shades of lockdown and the effect of it, including fear, let's focus on our vision because that is our true north. Secondly, let's focus on the unchanging nature of God. He is a just, holy, and loving God. He holds our future, both organizationally and personally. I may not know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. Looks like I'm not having the PowerPoint there, huh? Okay, I'm someone. Anyway, let me move on. So I mentioned about the vision, the unchanging nature of our God. Let's focus on that. And the other thing too, I'd like us to focus as individuals and as institutions that we have learned from our network is to continue to have clear communication. We live in a community, virtual community or physical community. We need one another to grow, to mature, to support one another. Sabi nga, walang iwanan. Walang iwanan. So, in the light of this pandemic and the lessons we learned from our network, let's continue to communicate clearly. And lastly, we need to be adaptable. We need to be agile. That's another word, agility, to be able to adapt ADA and to adopt ADOP. Okay. Keeping in mind what we live on and practice based on biblical principle. We need to see the world from this perspective of the scripture and from the perspective of Christ. But as we adapt, let's continue to live our Christian principle. The current challenges brought about by this COVID-19 will also pass. What happened? Okay. Okay. They say they can see. Okay. I've come to my last slide now. The current challenges will also pass. Maybe next year, maybe not next year, but one thing is sure, it will also pass. Let us prepare ourselves by hanging on to our loving and gracious God who has called us to address the need for financial inclusion of our nanay, of our program members. I'm sure the best is yet to come. So let us prepare and welcome today's challenges by focusing our vision to the unchanging nature of God, to continue to have clear communication, and being adaptable with agility. So the others have not seen this earlier, but let me just repost this again as I want so friends, brothers and sisters, attendees to this conference, let's continue to look at our vision. Let's continue to look at and focus on unchanging nature of God. Let's continue to have a clear communication with one another and institutionally. And lastly, as we attempt to continue to be agile, let's adapt and adapt because the best is yet to come, even in the midst of this pandemic. Thank you.